It's certainly been a long day for me. I don't know about you folks. At least I got to enjoy one day on the weekend. Need that caffeine to get me going. But I'm still pretty pumped up, jacked up and ready to go. How you doing, everybody? This is Jason's House of Fun and Video Games bringing you today, well, something new. Is it video game related? Is it nonsense related? Is it game room related? No, it's not. It's something I've been talking about for a really long time that I really wanted to try to dip my toe into. See if we could have some fun and go back to the past and revisit some old hash. That rhyme, that was completely unintentional. And the first movie we're going to do a review on is going to be... What else could it be? I mean, come on. It's pretty obvious, right? I know you know where I'm going with this. We're going to look into the Friday the 13th series. And if you don't have an idea of how invested I am with all the different things I collect video games, I collect action figures, I collect glorified nonsense, I collect things that are foam. I've got a lot of different rabbit holes I dig into. And horror is one of those things that has been with me for an extremely long period of time, almost as long as I can remember. Video games, action figures, and movies have been engraved into me. I thoroughly enjoy the genre of horror. I enjoy collecting it. I enjoy collecting all kinds of different movies. I enjoy the entire idea of the art. So, if you have, for whatever reason, not entertained the idea of watching this movie or this series, I suggest that you stop watching. This will not be a spoiler-free set of events. If I ever get into this further on where I'm looking at something newer, maybe I would do a non-spoiler review, maybe a spoiler review, but again, these movies have been out since longer than I've been around. This one in particular has been out since May 9th of 1980. That, ladies and gentlemen, is... I have to think because it's really late. I think it's 45 years. 45 years, check my math. 45 years ago, and actually the anniversary is coming up, I think pretty soon. Friday the 13th was released in the movies, in the movie theaters, in the movies. What the hell was I thinking? In the movie theaters. And it's crazy, the story about the actual movie itself. There's a lot of other folks that have really dedicated a lot of different things to explaining this. Again, this is my first time at it, so just bear with me. I do have a love for the genre. I do have a love for the movie. As I said, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about it. So, what can I say about this movie that hasn't been said? Well, why don't I take you back to the mid-'80s when I first saw my first Friday the 13th. Now, you would think maybe it would be the first one. Maybe the second one. Maybe it would even be The New Beginning. If it's a good movie to watch at a young age. I wonder if there's ever going to be an uncut version of that. It's probably long gone. It's probably never going to happen. Again, I'm just going way off the train tracks here. But May 9th, 1980. This, as one would probably call it, filthy little beast, reared its ugly head into theaters. The critics absolutely demolished it. As if you know, with many of the horror movies, slasher films, that's what they do. They absolutely demolished it. But it couldn't stop the freight train that was going to be the Friday the 13th series. It seems to be funny that, again, reviews can be very subjective, as they are. They're a review, they're an opinion. And how one point, reviews like Siskel and Ebert is the first one that comes to mind. I know newspapers will do it, all kinds of things like that, and other entertainment sources will do these things. And at one point in time, it felt like it weighed very heavy on, partial success or not for a film where Nowadays, it's just very different. Again, a lot of things are different. But either way, going back to my original thing that I completely skipped over because why not? It's my first time doing this. In the mid 80s, I want to say it was probably 86. I want to say it was more 87. I was very, very young. The first Friday the 13th was not any of those ones that I said. It was Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. And I remember very vividly watching it, along with all the others with my mom. You know, she's no longer with us, so, you know, there might be times where I may pause and just kind of reflect on the good times that I had, where it's just the way it is. I'm a human being, and, you know, again, this is free form and just having fun and trying to express why I really appreciate the series of Friday the 13th. It was a big part of, you know, spending time with my mom. But I do remember it. I remember her putting in a blank, it wasn't a blank VHS, was it? No, it was a VHS. I wish I still had it. And it looked like maybe there was a coffee stain on it or something. It had a few other things on it. One of the third things that were on it was Friday the 13th, Part 7. My mom didn't have the greatest penmanship, neither do I. Probably should be a doctor. Don't have the degree or the money to prove it, but my signature is atrocious. Hers was pretty bad too, but when she wrote out things on those VHSs, I could read them clear as day. Maybe it's because I have awful handwriting too, but I don't know. Nevertheless, I'm not trying to take anything away from her. Rest in peace, Mom. But the things that I can remember is I could watch all the brutal slaying, and again, Friday the 13th, Part 7 is not what we're talking about today, but just the introduction. The movie itself was very much toned down. You can see, I'm looking at my box set right now from Shout, Scream Factory, whatever the hell it is. I mean, and plenty of others where, and a lot of the documentaries that, you know, I'll discuss. Well, they discussed that Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, was heavily edited. Had to go through multiple run-throughs in the NPEPA to get the approval to get an R rating, because, let's be honest, anything that's above an R rating is considered X, and you are probably not going to make a lot of money. That is the common thesis of how movies work. Nobody wants an X rating, and it probably won't get shown in theaters, just the way it is. With the release to home video, VHS at one point, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, and then of course now streaming, that can all be a little different. A lot of different holes we can go into that, a lot of different rabbit holes. Man, it's just like a minefield of rabbit holes we could just fall into and never come back out, never get to the whole premise of what we're doing here today. So again, trying to stay on track. It's funny because when we were watching it, she was okay with the murder and, you know, everything else, and toned down or not, regardless, it's still showing just enough, just to have an idea of what exactly happened. And I believe she recorded it on VHS from the TV, and I don't think it was on a channel that would have been edited. I just can't remember. It could have been. No, actually it wasn't, because I had to shut the eyes at certain parts, and guess what those parts were? The nudity parts. I find it funny, so we had no problem with showing me murder and mayhem, a guy running around in a hockey mask and just causing chaos. But when it came to women in particular, because it's, you know, what was in it, what was shown, and them not being clothed, that was a huge issue. And close your eyes, Jason. I can remember that. And then after seeing it years later, I was just like, Either way, that was my introduction into Friday the 13th. And then, obviously, I got the NES game. I have it over here. It's one of my prized possessions. It's one of the few boxed NES games, complete in box, that I still own from my childhood. Excuse me. A little tired. Most of the other ones just kind of got thrown out. Oh, I really hate saying that. But, hey, listen. What are you going to do? Nobody can predict the future, right? Me being at such a young age, how would I know any of the cardboard would be worth any money? No! You can't. You can't. You just can't. Don't get me going with it. But either way, we're here to talk about the first movie. My name is Jason. I was born on Friday the 13th. I've told the story before. As a last thing to kind of roll that up with the relationship with my mom and how it relates to horror. She's a huge horror fan. Obviously, Friday the 13th was something she really enjoyed. She actually got to see the first three, I think, at the drive-in. I've never been to a drive-in before. I've seen one. I've driven by one. But I've never been to one. I never sat there and enjoyed that experience. And it's unfortunate that I don't think... Maybe there's a few out there. We'll get there at some point, maybe, right? And if not, maybe I'll just hit the lottery and put a drive-in my backyard. I don't know what the hell. Which Friday the 13th. That was the first one. And the first thing you think of when you hear Friday the 13th is Jason, hockey mask, and killing. That's what you think. That's what I got to know. And I had no idea about the backstory until sometime after that, where I finally watched the first one. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was confused as hell. I don't even know if I knew what the word confused meant at the time, but I'm pretty sure as I grew older and I really started to, grow into my own and kind of go through the stages, I look back and I go, man, I wish I'd watched it from the beginning. But, it is what it is. What can you do? So with the first one, it was written by Sean Cunningham. I'm sorry, it wasn't written by Sean Cunningham. I apologize. It was directed by Sean Cunningham and written by Victor Miller. Wow, that lawsuit then just came flying out of the gates, didn't it, with that? I really nailed that one on the head. God. But either way, Sean Cunningham actually, before this, did a few other movies. I don't know exactly what they were, but one that sticks into my mind was one that he did with Wes Craven. And I'm trying to think of the name of it right now. And it's leaving me. Last House on the Left. The original one, not the remake that was done in the 2000s. Good remake, nevertheless. Remakes are a huge thing. How do you folks feel about remakes? How do you feel about the Friday the 13th remake? How do you feel that we haven't gotten a Friday the 13th movie since, 2009? That's a long time ago. Holy crap. I mean, there's a lot of things going against it. But either way, we got a game. Kind of. Didn't we? Yeah, we did. It was pretty cool. We're supposed to get another one. We're supposed to get a TV series. Supposed to get another movie. Waiting. I'm just sitting here chomping at the bit just like everybody else that would love to see another Friday the 13th series. The Friday the 13th entry. They even had a TV series. Had nothing to do with the show. Nothing to do with the movies. Nevertheless, great series. Own them all, too. Multiple times I bought this box set. But the one from Scream Factory is fantastic. Supposedly they're going to have a 4K release of Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Again, I'm just kind of thinking off the cuff. Way off the train tracks here. These movie reviews are going to go so well, or they're going to bomb. People are going to be like, man, you just can't keep focused. I can't. And that's why I'm me, right? Too much stuff going on in this noggin, and I'm trying to regurgitate it in the most polite way to you as possible. But either way, another thing to think about is the composer. I mean, music and atmosphere are a huge part of movies. The composer for Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th, up until part 7, was done by Harry Mandolfini. Frederini? I probably butchered that name, but regardless, great composer. Every one of the movies has a unique feeling to it. The first couple kind of sound similar enough, but they have a uniqueness to it. And of course, I'm not going to get into that music stuff for obvious reasons, right? And then I believe Jason Goes to Hell as well. He was a composer of. I thought he was of 8. I think maybe it was. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, just let me know in the comments, of course, like, you'd always would. Correct me on that, but, I mean, the information that I have and stuff that I kind of looked up, I think it was 1 through 7 that Jason Goes to Hell. I don't know who did 8. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did them all. But, nevertheless, so with the first one, a lot of people feel it's slow. It's not as graphic. Well, of course it's not. It's a movie that back then, and again, thinking as Folks not in the industry like myself, I'm not in the industry at all. I'm just the guy that loves watching movies, has a pretty good idea of what goes on in them to the extent that I can from the outside looking in, right? So $550,000 is an awful lot of money. Back then, it was a pretty good amount of money. Now it's looking at the bigger side of things. I mean, look at the movies that are out now. Look at the Marvel universe. Look at Disney. Look at, all these different movies that have come out. Their budget is like ridiculous. So the budget on this movie was $550,000. It's a good amount. It's considered an independent film. Looked at as one that eventually, grows into the juggernaut that would be Friday the 13th. But at the time, it was just a movie just kind of hanging out and seeing what we could do. This movie brought in, this is just astronomical to think of, even with all the other successful movies that we could talk about in this series of videos. $250 million. That's what came back, not counting, I'm not an expert when it comes to dissecting what would go to this, what would go to advertising, what would go to the people who made the movie and everything like that. Just think about that. That has got to be one of the most successful turnarounds ever. I know there's been others. I know Halloween was, very similar boat. I know, Blair Witch was one that definitely comes to mind. That made a boatload of money. Didn't have a huge budget. But think about this. In 1980, a film made for $550,000 brings back that much money. The executives alone, and again, that's kind of my forte, not the movie industry, but just business in general, numbers, accounting, stuff like that. I don't work at a bank or anything, but I have to have an understanding on how profit and loss works. It's super important, because if you're not making profit, what are they doing with you, right? That's just with anything. It's just business. It's just the way it is. That's an awful lot of return on investment. Like, holy shit. I could only imagine being any one of those folks. And there's a lot of different folks that did a lot of great things that came out of this movie, that had great careers. Obviously the big one that sticks out, just like with Nightmare on Elm Street, had their Johnny Depp. This one had Kevin Bacon, and he happened to play a character named Jack. Now, is Kevin Bacon ever really referenced this movie at all, or kind of talked about it? The guy's a megastar. Like, you kind of got to understand that at some point in time, this is just a different part. I'm sure that, maybe at some point or another, somebody's probably asked him a question on it, but I think out of all the different documentaries I've seen and things, with talking to the actresses and actors, I don't remember seeing him, but it kind of makes sense. Same thing with, Johnny Depp guy, played in, was an actor in A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, released in '84. It's my year. Thank you. Craziness. Like, just imagine, like, what they were and where they came. It's just insane to me. It's crazy, right? Like, that doesn't happen very often. We look at it now and it's almost like satire, and we're like, it's just kind of how it goes. Back then, it wasn't. Like, these guys were, and these actors were probably just like anybody else, and they're just trying to make a name for themselves. And, one thing just kind of led to another, and, you just kind of let nature run its course, and sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't, I'm sure. But either way, so Friday the 13th is primarily based on, well, let's take it to the opening act. We get introduced in a very interesting way. I know that there were a lot of different ways that they kind of wanted to go about this. Some that never made it to film, just kind of, some storyboards that are out there and everything, which could have been interesting. But the way we're introduced to the movie is a couple of counselors, sitting around, sitting kumbaya, and having some fun. Obviously you could tell by the atmosphere in the scene that these these characters have, or the kids have already gone to bed and they're there for summer camp or whatever it is. You can tell by the outfits and everything. So, they're just sitting around having a good time. Then, of course, one thing leads to another. And we have, some things going on. Kids being kids, and I don't mean kids, I mean young teenagers, and young adults, whatever you want to call them, doing what we do best, stuff we probably shouldn't be doing. And I find it interesting because as I look back on this, how many times this has been repeated, how many ideas did this film take from other movies. I mean, there's been plenty of other movies that have done this similar thing, but for whatever reason, this just stuck with me. It really did. Obviously, you know what that leads to? If you've ever seen Scream, Scream is a huge part also of, my growing up, my younger years. The great year of 96. Wow. It's crazy. You know the rules that, you don't have sex. You never say you'll be right back. This and that, obviously, the meta in that, I guess, is the proper terminology for nowadays. The irony in it is that that reigns pretty true in almost every horror movie you see, right? It's funny how that goes back. It's looking at the series of the genre of horror, and it's just crazy. Again, just going off the tracks here, but either way, obviously, these counselors are doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, and then of course the atmosphere, the music changes, and obviously we know something good is coming. Well, at least for us, entertaining. Something bad, very bad, is coming for them. And clearly you see after one is disbanded, and another one, it has the girl screaming, and it goes from that bright white screen to a Friday the 13th sign just coming, smashing through. Glass breaks everywhere. If there was something I hope to ever achieve, is to be able to create an effect like that. I don't know. Again, I'm not somebody who's ever thinking about making a movie myself, but I would just like to be able to understand how that works. I know there's many ways to be able to research that, and I have looked into it. But again, it's just got to look at it repeatedly and kind of be like, how can I do this? This would be awesome if I could just have, Jason's House of Fun and Video Games coming in and just smash right through, and I don't know, just be cool. And I know there's ways to do it digitally, but I'm saying like, not digitally, not CG, none of that crap. Just actually do it and have it come out and look really cool and sound cool. But nevertheless, again, way off the train tracks. The title card obviously comes with that. And then we get the, the normal verbiage and people who did this, that, and the other thing, and cast and everything like that. So then, of course, it comes to, that was I think that was in 1957, if I'm not mistaken. And then we get to the present day of the 1980s. And then, of course, we get introduced to a whole bunch of different characters in this small little town, and just the difference of how it brings your senses up to such a high level. Like when those two first kills happen, and of course, one is pretty obvious, and the other one is just presumed. But I mean, you'd have to presume it, and they talk about it later on in the movie that counselors were killed. The water was poisoned, the electricity wasn't working, all this kind of crazy crap that's happened over the years. Just to prevent the camp from reopening. We have no idea what's going on with that. There's no indication of why that happened. It's just something that happened. Maybe shit just happened. It's a little more than that, right? So then, of course, we get to the present day. We get introduced to a lot of different characters. We get introduced to Annie, who is heading to Camp Crystal Lake, just recently reopened by Steve Christie, who happens to be part of the Christie family, who owned it since the 50s or 40s or whatever the hell it was. And yeah, we just get introduced to all kinds of different folks, and obviously she brings up where she's going, and small town vibes come running through, death curse and all this other stuff. I mean, the dialogue I find is very interesting and unique, thinking about it from now to then. I mean, you're talking over 40 years difference. It's pretty crazy, right? It's definitely a lot of different ways to interpret, describe, or act in a scene. It's just interesting. I just love the feeling of it. I love the atmosphere of this movie. It's different. It's different for sure. It feels very real. Not, the gags, the kills, all this other crap. Listen, we know what this is, right? It's art, right? But nevertheless, the atmosphere that it brings, and I think that's a huge part of the composers. Great work in it, and just tying it all in, and just knowing that these folks like really, really put in all their effort to have fun and create something they thought was just going to be another day at the office, and it ended up being something more than that, obviously, for a lot of different people. So obviously, that counselor gets picked up. They proceed to head towards Camp Crystal Lake, but before we do, of course, we have to be stopped by the local crazy guy that sat in the drunk tank for, a week or two, whatever it was, or a couple days. I forget how it was worded. But this character is actually one of the characters that will be reoccurring in 3 movies. Now, you're going to say, how is that possible because of what happens in 2? I get you. We'll get there. Okay? So, Crazy Ralph, who's played by Walt Garney, and has done multiple roles in multiple movies. Fantastic job. Normal, out of the... not as not normal as can be, just the crazy guy in town just trying to warn this person, like, hey, you can't go down there. Bad stuff happens. It's got a death curse. I love the emphasis. I love the way that the shot is filmed, and it focuses on certain parts. Again, I'm somebody who really just notices the strangest things, but the emphasis on death curse. See how the throat kind of moved a certain way? I just find it interesting. If you say death curse, different. If you say it's got a death curse, very different, right? It's and again, maybe it's just my interpretation, but again, we're just having fun here, right? So obviously they get going. One thing leads to another. Can't bring you in all the way, but I'll bring you a certain point. And then, obviously she marches on her merry way, a couple miles away from Camp Blood, as they called it in the local town. But it's known as Camp Crystal Lake. A funny part before we keep going. Camp Crystal Lake still is a camp today, but it's all called something completely different, as this was, majority of this, I believe, if not all of it, was filmed in 3 parts in New Jersey. I really, really want to go there. I know it's, obviously different, updated, renovated, it's a business. But just to be there and to feel that history, seeing videos and see people review it and have fun, that's great. But to experience it first person, Jersey was a hell of a state to drive through, but if I ever had to drive it through again, and not because of anything weird, it's just long, and the Jersey Turnpike is like 200 or 300 miles, it feels like. It's just super long, and I had to go up and down that a few times coming from here to Massachusetts, and of course, eventually to here, many years ago when I decided to move here with my family. But regardless, after this, we obviously, see Annie doing her thing, running through the forest. And then we, of course, meet the other camp counselors. Obviously, there's Alice, which, ends up being the main heroine. She is our lead, last female. Kind of gave it away there, but she's the lead one in this. And obviously, we get introduced to Bill. And then there's Marcy, Jack, of course, I mentioned before, Brenda, and, of course, Mr. Christie. He's a very interesting character. So I can't remember exactly where this scene is, because, again, it's really late. There is a very unique scene between Adrienne King's character of Alice and Steve Christie. And I don't know if it's really emphasizes a lot of different things I've seen out there about this, but it suggests that there was a relationship there. But yet, she's with this other guy, Bill, or at least that's what my interpretation of it is. I don't know, I just find it funny that infidelity would be mixed in there. Maybe it was one of those just moments where there was tension of the sexual kind, and it's just something that could have, should have, but never could be because of this, that, and the other thing. I just don't see her doing it. Maybe she did. Maybe she met Bill after it. I don't know. I don't think they really get into it again. There's character development here, but the movie's not super long. It's a horror movie, so they're not going to obviously focus on the whole part of storytelling. It's atmosphere, having some fun, and get to the killing, right? So obviously, as the movie goes on, obviously these folks are dispersed in interesting and unique ways by an unknown killer for an unknown reason. It's been done a bunch of times before, right? Memorable kills that I will talk about here. Brenda was off. What is it? What I'm trying to think of. Brenda was off screen. That's what I'm trying to think of. Annie was pretty cool. Marcy was awesome. Absolutely loved it. Great, fantastic. Got the hell of a swing with that axe. Bill was done off screen, but you do see the aftermath of it. And of course, Mr. Kevin Bacon himself, Jack, one of the most famous kills out of the Friday the 13th. And I could not believe when I watched Crystal Lake Memories, along with many other ones. Crystal Lake Memories is an amazing piece of work in documenting the Friday the 13th, talking with everybody. Like, it's something that you absolutely 100%, if you are a fan of just how movies get made, if you're a fan of just seeing the behind the scenes and how people feel and like the different characters and the different personalities that are involved, it's interesting. You gotta definitely check it out. But nevertheless, one by one, all these folks are completely, dismembered, killed off screen, not off screen. Again, lower budget means that they can't do everything they want to. But imagine if things were different. What if? What if's funny. Why are we doing a what if in the middle of this? Why the hell not? What if they had enough money to get more kills to make it less off screen, more on screen? Would that have changed the course of history with this entire franchise? Would there not be more plateaus to keep climbing, the pillars to keep going up? It's a pretty big what if. Would it just be chalked up as another horror movie, and what are they going to do? I mean, I don't know. It is what it is, right? But again, what ifs are great. I'd love to do a what ifs video on this series. It'd be fantastic. But either way, all these characters are, obviously taken out, as I said. Some great kills, some off-screen kills. Obviously, you can see the aftermath of most of them. And another memorable scene, of course, is Strip Monopoly. It's always a fun thing to do. I don't think I've ever played Strip Monopoly in my entire life that I can think of or admit to on this video. But nevertheless, pretty interesting choice, I guess. And there are other things that kind of stick out to me. And I don't look at something and go, why would you take so much time to do this? Because a lot of folks will do that. For me, when I look at something like the whole making the coffee scene, or making the tea, whatever the hell it was, when Alice is by herself and Bill's trying to do his thing and get the power back on because the generator went out, and I know everything about the generator, yeah, that is in this movie, because I think Ned makes the comment, generator or whatever. Again, we're jumping around a lot, but there's a lot of emphasis on making the cup of, again, coffee or tea. I think it's coffee. To the point where I'm just curious on why they did it. Did they do it because it was filler, because it didn't cost much? I'm just curious. And I don't know if I've ever really gotten an answer on that. I mean, maybe somebody has, or maybe I just missed something in one of the documentaries. Or in one of the commentaries that there's a bunch of them that are on there. It's great about movies and being released on these great box sets. As I continue to gawk at that, I just want to watch it again. I haven't watched them in a while. Commentaries are great. It kind of gives you an inside look. Again, if you're just looking for more out of a movie than just a movie, just what maybe they were thinking of. I mean, those are a great place to start. But nevertheless, I just found it interesting the amount of time that they spent on that particular scene. Just very interesting. I tried to see the good in everything. There has to be a reason for this, right? And, again, we could go into unrated director's cut. There is an unrated cut. It's not called the director's cut, but an unrated version, rather, of Friday the 13th. Unrated. It finally came out on Blu-ray many years ago. It's on the set that I have right now as a theatrical release and uncut. Friday the 13th Uncut, I think it's called. Not a lot was in there. There's no huge new scenes. It's just extensions of the kills. More focus on when this happened, when that happened. You have to cut away and do all kinds of crazy stuff to make the MPPA happy. The MPAA. That's what they're called. But regardless, nevertheless, still cool. That's the version I prefer to watch. But there is other things we need to discuss before we get to the big finale, because, again, I don't want to keep you here all day, and there's plenty of other folks out there that have much more in-depth crazy effects, all this stuff. They figure out ways to not have somebody come and, get them at the house or claim them or strike them or whatever the hell. It doesn't matter. But, nevertheless, gotta have some fun, right? Gotta get a crack at this, because it's really... really interesting. Hopefully I'll do this when I'm less tired next time. Oh, I know. So, I forget where I was going with that. We got through the coffee scene, right? That's just interesting and showing the whole... I don't know, it's just weird. I'd probably do something like that so somebody on this side of the world would be like, what the hell was that for? And I go, I like coffee. What can I say? And that's basically where I'd leave it. It's just the way it is. I like things to be up for interpretation. Some things that can be interpreted in multiple different ways are the best things. And especially when there's no answer. When somebody just goes, what can I tell you? I find that more interesting. Getting a direct reason as opposed to you can interpret it in so many different ways. I just think it's, fun. Or as, we say in the House of Fun and Video Games, funner, because that's a word I created. Probably not, but it's a word I use. I've never heard anybody use it before. I don't think I have I? I don't know. Well, either way, nevertheless, again, we're falling way off the train tracks, but I just found that interesting thing. But before all that, of course, there was shots of, obviously a storm coming, the rain. I really like the way the lake and the sun and the sky, it's not the sun anymore, the sun's going away. I love the way that everything feels, it sounds just amazing. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in a movie. Was that one shot right before, I think it's as Marcy and Jack are walking, she's discussing her dream of blood and all this other crap. Kind of first seeing what could possibly be just very odd. Or is it a coincidence? I don't know. Dreams are really weird, right? But after that scene and before we get to the scene where, the nude stuff goes on or whatever it is, Jack and Marcy doing their thing. This scene is just amazing. You'll know what it is. You'll know what it is when you see it. Just something different. I just love the way it feels. And from the beginning of the movie to the middle of the movie, it just gradually takes you on this ride. And if not a word was said, and it was just scenic, maybe with atmospheric music in the background, like, of course, what the composer intended for, that's why they're hired, it'd be a crazy movie. I would watch that. I would. I'm serious. I'm invested in this movie. It's great. You can't go wrong with this movie, and not enough people give it its due just. But a lot of people do. I just think they look at it from different perspectives, and of course, Jason Hockey Mask, that's just what you know. If you hear Friday the 13th, it's that guy with the hockey mask. Did he play hockey once? Oh. I've heard a lot of different things about it, but nevertheless, I find it funny how society interprets certain things where folks that are really hyper-focused, laser-focused, zoned in on something, know every single second of every solitary detail, minutes to when something happened, could actually read the script to you I mean, that's pretty intense. I don't think I could do that, but I mean, I could do a lot of things. Love the series, and I've watched it so many times, but nevertheless, that's a great scene. And then, of course, you know, we go through the normal stages of going through all the rest of the carnage, and then comes the most shocking thing as I think about it now. As a young person, I don't think I really kind of put the dots together on this, but as an adult, when I look at something and I try to be subjective, I try to have a different perspective, try to look for something new out of it other than just watching it because I absolutely love it. I could watch that, you know, any movie in that series, even 5. We'll get there. I know, new beginning. Let me tell you something, brother. That's a new beginning for sure, ain't it? Oof. Some people will argue that's the best sequel of all. Okay. Watch their videos. They make valid points. Then comes the big reveal. What's the big reveal? Well, the spoiler moment of all. After all the killing and all the bullshit that's gone on in this movie, there's obviously a few other things that happen. A set of lights comes on. And the lady gets out. I can look at her right now. Blue sweater, black pants, black boots. That's what you see. Eventually through a few scenes. And she seems like the nicest person in the world. She seems like your grandma. She seems like your mom, depending on your age. And she's just very welcoming. And then, you know, obviously the lead character, Alice, is completely out of her mind because every one of her friends, including her boss, is murdered. They're dead. And she doesn't know what to do. And this person just comes in and thinks that, you know, she's just imagining things. We have no idea who she is. She just comes in. She seems like just, you know, lady, for God's sake, she'd go to a person's house, to your friend's house, and grandma would be there with cookies. So obviously, as time goes on and the conversation takes place between Alice and Mrs. Voorhees, as we will know her, things start to make a change, and you see the characters start to change, meaning Mrs. Voorhees, Betsy Palmer's character. And it's almost like a descent in madness. She talks about a young boy that drowned in 1957. The counselors weren't paying any attention. I had to be very careful because I could sound close enough to it. And again, I don't want to get into that weird thing to where somebody's like, "You're playing the movie clip." Am I? I just spoke and did it right in front of you. Like, whatever. Nevertheless, I could care less. We're just having fun here. So, you know, obviously, that little boy that drowned ended up being her only son, Jason. And today was his birthday, Friday the 13th. Thank you, Mom. I'm so glad you were able to give me joy knowing that it took 25 plus years to get this out of her. 25 plus. That's how long I've been in my profession. 25 plus years. Interesting correlation there to getting this answer. Find it weird, but whatever. 25 years and I finally got the answer. Did you name me Jason because of your love for horror? Your love for the genre? Yes, I'll tell your grandmother. Believe you me, at some point in time, I think I did mention it, and you know, my grandmother basically looked at me and said, "You're full of shit." I think she ended up, you know, finally getting it and be like, "Are you serious?" I go, "Yeah, she loved horror." You know, nevertheless, we're getting way off track then. Obviously, you see the descent into madness. Very beautifully acted, very beautifully lit, grainy. It just has this feel to it. It just goes from such a high note that she feels like she's gonna, like, finally somebody's just gonna come through and like this nightmare's gonna be over, and it's the furthest thing from over. And then clearly, you see the descent into madness. Such a fantastic actress, Betsy Palmer was. A lot of different things. But, you know, obviously the one that sticks out to me and a lot of other folks is that series, Friday the 13th. So, it just goes from one end to another, and this lady just absolutely loses her fucking mind. And the music changes. It's fantastic. They get into, physicality. It's just insane. Because I did do, obviously, my due diligence over the years, not necessarily for this, but over the years, for me, I wanted to know how this worked. And when you have a movie that's very low budget, I don't see that being low budget at the time, but I mean, for probably most other movies, like I was saying, like Marvel and Disney and all that crap, it is. And again, the times are just different, right? They really went at it. There's a couple times some of those smacks. She had Adrienne King, no questions asked. She blasted her. She's smacking her head off that ground near the very end. That shit's really happening. The actress is, I think at least Adrienne King has verified that. I don't know if Bessie Palmer ever did or not. I can't remember, but nevertheless, obviously we get to our climax, and the big win comes. The thing we've been waiting for, folks. Is Alice going to get out alive? Well, everybody else is dead. Maybe she'll just be added to the body count. She will not. Off with the damn head it goes. When I saw that, and as looking at it as an adult, it's obviously dated. There's a million different things there's just so much technology that's come to kind of hide certain things, but there's something beautiful in it. I don't mean ripping somebody's head off. That's crazy. I mean that when you look at a movie and like the magic, it's just amazing. It wasn't even a whole bunch of blood or anything. I mean, I think originally it was supposed to be, but obviously the MPAA or the MPPA, whatever the fuck they're called, obviously would have had a field day with it. But nevertheless, we think that's it. That's the payoff. That's the what we've been waiting for. It's not. Alice wakes up. And, obviously at that final scene, there's a boat there, so it kind of makes sense she would end up on a boat. She wakes up. Nice and beautiful sound. The atmosphere is completely different. The storm has gone past. We're okay. We've gotten through the night. It's crazy. And, like, the music just completely throws you off. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you say. I don't care how many times you've seen it. I saw it coming a mile away. You didn't. Sorry. Most people, if you did, then you're a different breed, right? Most people did not see this coming. So obviously, after she's sitting there, doing again, it's the little things like the hand gesture into the water, the way it rippled. I could only imagine how the atmosphere smelt and felt, and man, I would love to go to that lake. And everything seems fine. Like you see in the distance. The officers have come to assist and help. As I look at the poster, kind of explains pretty much everything I just said. Then the unthinkable happens. It doesn't say that it's Jason. Not at any point in time. Alice says it's Jason. We have to presume that that's what that was. Jason pops out of the lake, grabs her, and drags her under. We don't see her die or anything. You just see the boat go back. The music changed when that thing happens. Jason shoots out of that damn lake onto the boat and grabs that poor girl. Oh my goodness gracious. That was something fierce. That was awesome. And then, of course, it goes to white, which is similar to the way the movie opened with the white, the and the white face. Or the white, it fades into white. Same thing happens with the end. And obviously, Alice is in a hospital, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. The cops in there, doctors are talking, and they're looking at her like she's crazy. Because she obviously asks, what about the boy Jason? Ma'am, we didn't find any boy. That's how it went. And then the face turns. Alice has this very puzzled look on her. whether it was dream or reality. It's not really said. But then she just simply goes, and he's still there. And then obviously the scene will silhouette and cut into the end of the movie, and it'll go right to the lake. There is no Jason. There is no water moving around. There is no craziness. It's just that one place where the dream sequence happened. Or was it a dream? We have no idea. I mean, if you went through what that lady went through, meaning Alice, I think we'd all probably be seeing some kid pop out of the water at that point. I mean, it's just batshit crazy, right? Imagine going through that. Just crazy, right? So it goes into the lake and then it kind of just fades in, and it has such a, again, it goes back to that scene and that it's, if not the same, it's very similar music, very calming. The storm is past. Doesn't have any big oomph at the end. It just simply cuts, fades to black. And then you sit there and you go, wow. That being said, what do I think of the movie? It's awesome. The series is awesome. Long live horror. Let me tell you something, brother. Yeah, it's that kind of feeling that it gives me. Just gets my blood flowing. I absolutely love the series, and I can't wait to get to many more installments of this, along with a bunch of other things we could do, and just give a different video, something different, something new, something fresh, something to get my mind off of whatever the hell's going on, and maybe get your mind off things that are going on in your life too. But folks, that is the end of the video, so we've got to do our normal outro now. 283 awesome, amazing people have subscribed to the House of Fun and Video Games. I hope you do too if it's your first time here. And if you made it this far, congratulations, because it's been one hell of a wild ride. Talking about movie review, oh my goodness gracious. If there was a set of routes that we could go down on this train, I'm pretty sure we don't know where the hell we ended up. Probably ended up off the cliff at some point in time, but nevertheless, that's why I don't drive trains. I don't got a conductor hat. I'm not a conductor. Choo-choo. Not happening with this guy. But thank you, those awesome, amazing folks. And if you want to join, absolutely. Hit that bell notification thingamajigger on the video, on the channel, so you can be notified whenever I release anything when it comes to movie reviews. Maybe you want to take a look at the thrift. I've done a ton of videos on the thrift. Ton of things about video games. We've got eBay Time and Buys. eBay Time and Buys Revisited, where your boy goes back to look at some of his eBay purchases. Yeah, at one point I did buy a good chunk of shit off of eBay. And see if your boy got here duped. Because there's been a few times that I have. There's been a few times that it worked out for me. Let's play some video games. We just put on a video game. We have some fun. Talk some shit. And there's plenty of other things to look at the channel. Of course, game room tours and everything like that. So, plenty of things to choose from. Other ways to reach the House of Fun of Video Games other than commenting on this. We want to take the conversation further. Maybe send me some pictures of your game room. Pictures of stuff you got at the thrift. Pictures of your horror collection. Pictures. Plenty of other things we could do. Get the conversation a little bit further. Take it further. Take that train and just drive it right off the goddamn cliff. Jason's House of Fun Video Games on Facebook. I'm also on X, because it's not called Twitter anymore, and I find that very odd to say. At Jason's House of Fun and Video Games. I mean, it's been like that forever. Get with the times, Charlie. That would be me, sir. And ma'am, or whoever the hell I'm talking to. Thank you very much for joining me on this wild ride. I look forward to going down the rest of the movies that we have in this franchise, and maybe we'll keep going this. Maybe we'll make this a regular thing. Maybe I'll scrap it off of this because you say, I don't know about you here today, bud. Well, maybe I'll just say, well, I don't care. I'm going to keep doing it because it's fun. I thank you, folks. I hope you have a wonderful night. Hope you enjoy. I don't even know what day it is. What day is it? I think it's Monday, technically. I don't know. But nevertheless, the work week's ahead of us. Yep. Great. Get to work another week. Fantastic. Wonderful. But no work. No play. No play, no work. That's how it goes. And that's it. Video's done. That is it. End of list. End of story. We are done. That's a riggedy wrap.